Good evening. The political arena has certainly heated up with the nominations for the presidential elections being accepted today.
We have the latest lined up for you, but first let's take a look at tonight's headlines.
35 nominations of presidential candidates accepted. Kumara Velgama and Chamal Rajapaksa steps down from contesting the presidential polls. Election campaigns begin with candidates handing over their nominations. National Elections Commission request for a fair election. What is the stance of the SLFP? Railway trade union strike action called off after meeting with the president.
On to your top story tonight, 35 candidates submitted nominations for the presidential elections today. Candidates will be contesting from 18 recognized political parties and 2 other parties. 15 independent candidates will also be contesting the election. Thank you.
Chamal Rajapaksa
The chairman of the Elections Commission, together with the other members of the commission, accepted nominations for the presidential elections at the Elections Commission in Rajagiriya from 9 a.m. today. 35 out of the 41 candidates who placed bonds for the election submitted their nominations. 6 candidates who placed bonds did not submit their nominations. Chamal Rajapaksa, Kumara Velgama, former Chief Minister of the Sabaragamuwa province Mahipala Herath, are among the candidates who did not submit their nominations. Chamal Rajapaksa and Mahipala Herath had arrived at the Elections Commission today. Presidential candidate of the New Democratic Front, Sajith Premadasa, submitted his nomination. Former commander of the army, General Mahesh Senanayake, submitted nominations as the candidate of the National People's Party. Gotabaya Rajapaksa submitted nominations as the candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna.
அவர்கள் இப்பொழுது வேட்புமனு தாக்கலை கையளிக்கின்றார்கள். සුවිශේෂී අවස්ථාවක් විදිහට අපට හඳුන්වන්නට පුළුවන්. අවකාරෝද්දාන කාරණයක් රටේ ප්‍රධාන දේශපාලන ප්‍රවාහයේ අපේක්ෂකින් දෙදෙනා විදිහට සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහතාත් ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මහතාත් හඳුන්වන්නට පුළුවන්.
Leader of the JVP Anrukumara Disanayake submitted his nominations as the candidate of the National People's Movement. Duminda Nagamuwa submitted nominations as the candidate of the Frontline Socialist Party. Nominations were also submitted by Ajanta Pereira as the candidate of the Socialist Party of Sri Lanka, Siritunga Jayasuriya from the United Socialist Party, Badde Gamage Nandimitra as the candidate of the Nava Samasamaja Party. On behalf of the Socialist Equality Party, Vajrapani Vijayasiriwardana submitted nominations, while Sarath Manamendra submitted nominations as the candidate of the Nava Sinhala Urumaya. The other candidates who submitted nominations include Rohan Pallewatta from the Jatika Sangwardana Peramuna and A.S. Liyanage from the Sri Lanka Labour Party. Venerable Battaramulle Seelaratana Thera submitted nominations as the candidate of the Janasita Peramuna. Saman Prasanna Pereira handed in nominations as the candidate of the Our Power of People Party, while Aryavansa Disanayaka submitted nominations as the candidate of the Democratic United National Front. Attorney at Law Namal Rajapaksa handed in nominations for the Nationalities Unity Organisation. Aruna Dizoisa and Ajanta Dizoisa submitted nominations for the Democratic National Movement and the Ruhunu Janata Peramuna. Priyantha Munihat Edirisinghe submitted nominations as the candidate of the Okkoma Vasio Okkoma Rajavaru Sangvidhanaya. Subramaniam Gunaratna is contesting as the candidate of the Our National Front. Venerable Aparakke Punya Lokatera, Jayanta Katagoda, Siripala Amrasinghe, Milroy Fernando, Sajit Vijita Kumara, Anuruddha Polgampola, Samravira Veeravanni, Ashok Wadiga Mangava, Rajiva Vijay Singha, M.K. Sivajilingam and MLA M. Hizbullah, Ilyas Idrus, Piyasiri Vijay Nayaka, Samansiri Herat, Ahmed Hazan Mohammed submitted their nominations as independent candidates. While the accepting of nominations ended at 11 a.m., time was provided until 11:30 a.m. for objections to be filed against the nomination papers. Objections were filed against 2 nomination papers. As both of the objections were not connected to the provisions of the Act, they were suppressed. All of these 35 candidates can send 2 representatives each to every polling station. That means there will be 70 representatives per polling station. 175 counting agents can be present at the counting centre. We plan to spend 4,000 million rupees on the election, but now as the number of candidates has increased, the cost of the election will be much higher than we anticipated. We request you to reduce the number of representatives being sent to counting stations. We must find halls that can accommodate more than 160 people. If that happens, we will have to find a massive hall where all of the votes from an electorate can be counted and count the votes over the course of about 2 to 3 days.
මුළු ඡන්ද ප්‍රදේශයේම ඡන්ද එක ශාලාවේ දවස් 2-3ක් යනකම් ගණන් කරන්න.
On a similar note now, candidates who submitted nominations earlier today met their supporters outside the premises of the National Elections Commission.
Sajith Premadasa, who submitted his nominations from the New Democratic Front, received a warm welcome from his supporters opposite the National Election Commission.
I would like to take this opportunity to state that we will work together towards creating a massive revolution in the country centered around modern technology to open the doors of development to the general public of this country, to give the people the right to life and to create a beautiful country.
Presidential candidate of the Podujana Peramuna Gotabaya Rajapaksa met with his party supporters outside the National Elections Commission.
On the 16th of this month, Gotabaya Rajapaksa will become the president of this country. Get ready on the 16th to celebrate victory on the 17th with this same vigor.
presidential candidate of the National People's Movement, Anurakumara Dissanayake, also received a warm welcome from his party supporters after submitting his nominations.
The political history of the past 71 years has taught us many lessons. This has proved that these two outdated parties can take this country forward. This is why we are asking the people to build a government that will fulfill the aspirations of the people.
Meanwhile, other presidential candidates also spoke to the media after submitting their nominations.
The handing over of nominations shows clearly the victory that we have achieved. After today, we are beginning our campaign. Our campaign is clearly a march towards victory. The people of this country have been suffering for the past 71 years. Today, they have an impartial candidate to represent them. The people who stole from the country, the people who divided the country, and the supporters of Americans are the people who have been found eligible to submit nominations. We are here to fix this country. No matter who submits nominations, I will definitely win. If you want to know the winning secret, I invite you all to come to the Sugatadasa Indoor Stadium on the 11th of October. To save the country from this debt trap that we are in, we need 10 billion to manage the economy. The two main parties that have been ruling the country for the past 72 years have not been able to save the country. Let's reject this neoliberal economy. Let's save the farmers of the country and the working class of this country from this debt. The United Socialist Party is sending out the message to enter into a path of socialism through submitting nominations. This is the request that the party candidate makes from the people.
I am the only female candidate to submit nominations. The women in this country are suffering. 700 women from our country travel overseas to work every day. They are leaving their children as they do not have hope. My hope is to bring hope to the poor men, Sinhala, Tamil, Muslim, all alike.
We have started the fight to chase away these corrupt rulers. We are planning on gathering all the youth in the country and to record a resounding victory at the presidential election. The country is currently facing an economic crisis. The country is also facing a political crisis, especially with the power struggle between China and the United States. We are facing a military threat. Therefore, you must use your vote against it. The people of this country need a system that creates true democracy and the power of the people in the country. We ask the general public of the country to join hands with us. The chairman of the Elections Commission also thanked members of the security forces as he exited the premises of the National Elections Commission.
Thank you. මේ දැන් හැමෝම හිතන අපි දැන් වැඩේ ඉවරයි කියලා. අද මේ වෝම් අප් පූල් එකේ හිටියේ. ඩීප් එන්ඩ් එකට යන්න තියන්නේ හෙට. ඊට වැඩිය මහා සාගරයට යන්න තියෙනවා ඡන්දේ වෙනකොට. ඒක ඉන්න මේක අපි වෝම් අප් පූල් එකේ අර බේබි පූල් එකේ තමයි අද හිටියේ. ඩීප් එන්ඩ් එකට වහින්න තියෙනවා අද හවස ඉඳලා.
The chairman of the National Elections Commission then spoke to the media. If people believe that the rights available to one person to engage in politics is also available to others, then this will be a free and fair election. An election will be free and fair if there is space for others. If not, they will not have these rights. We have provided everyone with that freedom. We have told all the candidates that everyone has equal rights and that they should say out loud what they need to say. I have always said that others hurt the same way we do and that others feel the same way we do. If there is no fake news or hate speech, we can have a good election.
Minister Sajith Premadasa arrived at the Gangarama temple in Hunupitiya after handing over his nominations for the presidential polls.
Your beloved father started his 40th year of politics by renovating the fence around this Bodhi Malua and developing the Bodhi Malua. I bless you and wish you to accomplish what you are to embark on. Before handing over his nominations, presidential candidate of the New Democratic Front, Sajith Premadasa, offered floral tribute to the memorial of his late fathers in Keselwatta.
Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, arrived at the Abhayaramaya temple in Narahempita to engage in religious observances after handing over his nominations.
Gotabaya Rajapaksa also engaged in religious observances before he left his residence to hand over his nomination papers.
MP Hirunika Premachandra had to face an unexpected situation opposite the Election Secretariat earlier today. The MP had arrived at the Elections Commission from the side allocated to SLPP supporters by mistake.
That side was allocated to the Pohottua. They shouted in a foul manner. Look at our side, the decency. Do we hoot at anyone? Some of my colleagues at the Provincial Council were also there. I asked them why they were hooting at me. We should be able to hold different political opinions in this country. They started hooting, then I acknowledged them respectfully. The police asked us to go there, and that is why we took that route. They have a big grudge against me as well because I was with them and then switched in order to appear for their Hapalanaya. We came here because we did not approve of their thuggery in that government.
Now, those visuals you witnessed from the previous news item were in front of the premises of the National Elections Commission. Meanwhile, what happened to the candidacy of Nagananda Kodituakku?
Nagananda Kodituakku, who missed his opportunity to contest for the presidential polls, arrived at the National Elections Commission today. Nagananda has to come from a recognized political party to contest in the presidential election. If not, he has to be an MP. At least he needs to be a former minister. The MP can register this political party 4 years prior to an election. So we started this movement in 2017, and when we presented this to the Elections Commission, they said that as it takes 4 years, it will be 2021 when we will be allowed to contest. They advised that we join hands with a political party that has already established themselves. After holding discussions with 5 to 6 political parties in the country, we realized that these political parties were in the market for 30 million onwards. Nagananda will not spend a cent to run for this election. In the end, we selected the name Okkumavesi or Okkumarajavaru. This party came to a written agreement to put forward myself as their presidential candidate. As part of the agreement, they made a request that I relinquish my British citizenship. Then they said they will permit me to represent their party. Unlike the others, I did not produce a false certificate of renunciation. I presented it with the consent and the seal of the Elections Commissioner. Then, instead of accepting the certificate of renunciation, they took various steps to avoid giving me the nomination. I met the secretary of this party in Kandy last Thursday and held discussions until 3 a.m. We agreed to come to the commission by 10 and to meet and place the bond at noon. But even at 4 p.m. on Friday, he didn't arrive. He then showed up at 4 p.m. and told me that I cannot be their candidate and asked me to support Mahesh Senanayake and to work together with him. This was done in an organized manner. That is why I submitted my objection to the commission online. Nagananda also arrived at an agreement with another party. You will see that agreement too. Then you will see who he supports. It is not one of the main two parties that are full of corruption and malpractice. Clear?
මේ වංචාවේ දූෂණයේ ඉන්න ප්‍රධාන පක්ෂ දෙකෙන් එකකවත් නෙවෙයි. මට මං කියවනේ
I told you that if Nagananda was to come to an agreement with the JVP, I would reveal the name only after the agreement has been publicly declared. I cannot name one party.
ඒකපාක්ෂිකව නමක් කියන්න බෑනේ මම.
ඔබතුමා විශාල මුදල් ප්‍රමාණයක් එකතු කරගත්ත කියලා චෝදනාවක් තියෙනවා. දැන් ඔබතුමාට ඒක ටික ඔක්කොම ඔබතුමාගේ.
සම්පූර්ණ වශයෙන්ම
In total, a sum of about 11 million was collected. There was an account that was opened for this purpose. No other party can steal from that account. I will reveal all the information to the public.
Meanwhile, attention has been drawn towards the decision of the SLFP on how to face the upcoming presidential election. However, even today, the SLFP failed to deliver a definite and official decision.
Parliamentarian Telanga Sumudipala, representing the SLFP, attending a media briefing today, commented on which faction the party would support.
For the first time in our country's history, an executive president who has been appointed is not contesting for the second time. We do not have a journey with the UNP. Therefore, we need to act against that faction. There were several requirements that had to be fulfilled for the SLFP and the SLPP to unify. Firstly, an MOU is needed to be drafted between the SLFP and Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Secondly, an MOU between the SLFP and the SLPP needs to be signed. And thirdly, the draft of the constitution of the Sri Lanka Nidahas Podujana Peramuna should be drawn up. All three of these requirements are at around 95% of completion. The freedom and the power to make the final decision has been given to the chairman of the party.
Parliamentarian Bimal Weerawansa expressed similar remarks opposite the National Elections Commission today.
According to our sources, the SLFP's support would be given to the flower bud and our candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa. It would be confirmed either today or tomorrow.
However, on the contrary, the organisation to protect the SLFP, while announcing that Kumara Welgama will not be handing in nominations today, claimed that the SLFP would not support the SLPP.
This is the final attempt to protect the SLFP. As a first step in that sequence, we will withdraw our candidate Kumara Welgama from the presidential race.
Several supporters of the SLFP had arrived at the premises of the National Elections Commission today to pledge their support to the presidential candidate of the New Democratic Front, Sajith Premadasa.
I am the chairman of the Candidate Society of the SLFP for the Ratnapura district. We request all SLFP supporters to pledge their support to Sajith Premadasa to ensure his victory. I am certain Sajith Premadasa will be victorious.
However, the media spokesperson of the SLFP said the party has not arrived at a final decision.
Presidential candidate of the National Democratic Front, Minister Sajith Premadasa, met with United Lawyers Association yesterday.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe also participated at this occasion. Lasantha Wickrematunge was murdered in broad daylight. In order to vindicate themselves from this accusation, Rajapaksa himself should come into power. Gotabaya Rajapaksa filed a court case against Lasantha Wickrematunge and the Sunday leader at the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court. A group of lawyers affiliated to the Magistrates Court came forward to appear for this case. On the day of the court hearing, all the vehicles of the lawyers were removed from the court premises. The vehicles of Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the official vehicles of the Navy Commander, Army Commander and the IGP parked inside the premises of the court. These three also accompanied Gotabaya Rajapaksa for the court hearing. Srinath and myself, together with about 75 other lawyers, appeared for Lasantha Wickrematunge, Lal Wickrematunge and the Sunday Leader newspaper. When we appeared for them, what did they do? Through the security network, they labelled the three of us as traitors in black coats.
Now, the strike action that prevailed for 12 days, which was launched by railway trade unions, was called off this evening. Now, the trade unions that met with President Maithripala Sirisena this morning.
As you said, Jayamal, the train strike that was ongoing for 12 days, inconveniencing the general public to a great extent, concluded today. This morning, the trade unions attached to the railway services met with President Maithripala Sirisena, and thereafter the railway strike was called off.
President Sirisena, who met with the trade unions at his official residence today, had informed the latter that their responsibility was to ensure the general public will not be inconvenienced when initiating trade union action. The president had informed the trade union representatives that he will consider the demands of the trade unions after they call off the strike action and intervene to provide solutions accordingly. Following the meeting at the ministry, trade union representatives informed the media of their decision to call off the strike. They expressed the following views opposite the Transport Ministry this evening. During the discussions with the chairman of the National Salary Commission, he agreed to certain conditions to solve our issues. We are due to discuss this with the Ministry of Transport and reach a final decision in the future. All unions agreed to this. Therefore, we will call off this strike action. The Minister of Transport arrived in the island only today. This problem was solved only after his arrival.
Now, it was a known factor that people who use the train to get to work in the morning and get back home in the evening were severely inconvenienced as a result of the 12-day strike action that was launched by the railway trade unions. While the people were inconvenienced, while the people had to face many risks to get from one place to another during the day, this is how these trade union representatives were traveling around. Let's have a look. This is indeed an unfair situation. You can see on one side of your screen how the general public on a daily basis commute to work and get back home, how they face risks, how they have to get on top of the train, get on the engine and go to their workplaces and go back home in very unsafe, unsecure situations, while the so-called trade unions, who have been the reason behind all of these trade union actions, these strike actions, are to a certain degree enjoying a very luxurious life. We also have to remember that there are many other graduates who are doing state sector employment, who are involved in the state sector, who are working for a salary that is way less than what these trade unions receive as their monthly salary and along with their benefits. Now, keeping all of this aside, we have been a network who have always been on the side of trade unions when problems arise and when those problems have been fair and just. However, when it comes to this particular situation and this 12-day strike action launched by the trade unions, why were they striking?
One of the main problems we had was the salary increase that will be effective from the 1st of January next year. As per the recommendations provided through the National Salary Commission, our salary was reduced. We rectified this issue and made sure our salaries were at the right level. With effect from 1st of January 2020, our salaries were to be reduced. This is why we took to the streets. This strike action was not launched due to any anomalies in the salary grade.
ඉවත් කරගන්න නෙමෙයි අපි මේ වැඩ වර්ජනයට එළඹුණේ.
ඇත්තටම ඔබතුමාලා ගැටලු මේ රටේ දැන් තව දන්නවා. වැටුප් ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා.
නෑ වැටුප් ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ.
හරි. ඊට පස්සේ
සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම
විෂමතාවය. හරි. දැන් ඔබතුමාලට වැටුප් ප්‍රශ්නයක් මොකුත් නෑ.
නෑ අපිට තියෙන ශ්‍රේණි විෂමතාවයක් මෙතන.
හරි. හරියටම හරි. ඒ තාම වැදගත්. දැන් තියෙන ශ්‍රේණි විෂමතාවයක්. ඒතකොට ඒකේ වැටුප් ප්‍රශ්නයක් කොහෙවත් නැද්ද?
නෑ.
Again, a problem arises. Was it a salary anomaly? Was it an issue pertaining to the grades? Now, these so-called trade union leaders who at this very same location debated about why they were holding this strike action also made this statement. Let's have a look at that as well.
අනතුරු වලට නම් බය නැහැ. දැන් සාකච්ඡාව සාර්ථකයි. නීතියට කොහොමත් තවනතයි.
We will anyway abide by the law. We are not afraid of threats. We were tremendously threatened by a certain private media channel, but our officials were not put on the back foot by that. We are not afraid of any threat. We bow our heads before the law. We bow our heads before the law. That was what the trade union leader, who was one trade union leader who was responsible for the strike action, said today when they announced that the strike action had been called off. It was this very same location that two groups representing two sectors of the trade unions, one for and one against, came here and spoke about the reasons behind these strike actions that they had launched. Now, this brings us to an interesting situation. This brings us to a point where we have to question several key points that we have been speaking of throughout this strike action that they had launched. The first point being, the people who said that they bow their heads before the law forgot at the very inception that they are state sector employees and railways had been made an essential service, and that they have to respect the constitution, respect the fact that they are state sector employees, and make sure that the government runs smoothly, and they are responsible for this to take place. They forgot that the people are being inconvenienced. They forgot that there is a risk for all the commuters in all the trains that they had as a result of the strike action that was ongoing. Those are the two main points that we have to keep in mind before we move further. Secondly, we also have to realize that there was a certain carelessness from the side of these trade union leaders to the actual problem. To see, they do not even know why they were holding on to this strike action. They do not know whether it was a salary anomaly. We do not know whether it was actually an issue pertaining to their grading. So there itself, the problem still complicates itself by displaying to us as to whether they actually know why they are striking. Those are the two main points. Now, moving forward, we also have to commend here the State Minister of Transport. The subject minister was not in the country. The State Minister of Transport was handling this situation. There were several discussions that were held from the point of the State Minister, who very responsibly took steps to hold discussions and provide certain solutions. The President was also involved. It was made an essential service, and there too, these trade unions made sure that the strike action was ongoing, forgetting that they were state sector employees and forgetting the fact that this had been made an essential service. These are the people who now come before the general public, who now come before the media and say that they bow their heads before the law. We have to remember these as we go forward. We have to also remember that these same trade unions pointed the finger at each other and said that this was a politicized effort and that this had politics behind it. And the people were also very quick to understand that this had a political arm throughout the whole strike action. Thirdly, now from what we know, we were told that these people met with the subject minister, Minister of Transport today. However, from the information that we have received, they could not meet the subject minister. They could not meet the transport minister. In fact, what had happened was they had met the secretary and they came out of the ministry and said, okay, here we go, we are now calling off the strike action. But what actually happened? We were on the side of the people here. I touched on this before as well. Every time there was an issue pertaining to trade union issues, we took the side that was just and fair. However, at this particular moment, when we saw, when Newsfirst cameras captured people getting onto engines, people getting onto trains and traveling from one location as if this was India, then Sirasa, Newsfirst, MTV, Shakti TV, all our networks had to come together and be on the side of the general public. This was not an issue where the trade unions were acting according to their whims and fancies. According to the trade unions themselves, these issues were politicized issues. Thereafter, when the media got all of these trade unions, got their views,
it was clear that they were also not sure, they were unsure as to why there was a protest and why there was a strike action going on. Against this backdrop, it was very clear that all these media networks had to be on the side of the people, and that is where we stood. When we brought in factors like the legal issues pertaining the essential service, when the Gazette or the essential service had been issued, we reminded to these trade union leaders and these trade union activists who are at home not reporting to work that your personal assets too could be at risk. And then I'm not married. I'm sure Jaimal and Dasuni, who is at the main desk, are also not married. But there is this story to say, it's a funny story to say that all men are afraid of their wives. Now, with this, keeping this in mind, I think that is exactly what happened, because we can point the finger at all these trade unions and say, when no one was giving them attention, when the general public were not giving them their attention, when the subject minister was trying his best, when the state minister, in fact, of transport was trying his best, and the president was taking action, they had nowhere to go. And once they do not have any solace in terms of the strike action they launched, they are now coming before the people and saying, we bow our heads before the law. But it was us who was talking of the law from the first place. We were on the side of the people and we reported what was going on, and this is the current situation. 12 days after the strike was launched, they are now saying that they are bowing their heads before the law and calling off the strike action.
These people must definitely be sent home. They get a salary of 350,000 rupees after learning from the money of the people, and they do not fulfill their duties. They must be sent home. There are enough of other graduates in the country. They should be trained and recruited to the Railways Department. This is unfair. The trains have not come on time. It is said that the situation will be normal from tomorrow, but I don't know what will happen. I thank the Citizen Media Organization for helping us so much. If the media was not there, we wouldn't have been able to even see this. Many of us do not know what is really happening. Since it is election time, everyone is focused on the election. They play this as a small news segment. The lack of trains is the problem that affects a majority of the people.
Night for the Newsfirst team, I'm Dasni Athauda.
And I'm Jaimal Ratnagar. Take care.
Good night.